Hello everyone, today I want to show you how to make this beaded macrame bracelet with this kind of scalloped edge to it going all the way along. You have your beads inside there running down both sides of the bracelet. You get this really nice effect. Then I've just used some ribbon ends and some findings here to finish it off with. So you get this scalloped edge on both sides of the bracelet. So this is the version I'm going to show you how to do today. This is kind of the simple version of it. I've also done another one. It looks like this. You see there's a bit more to this, it has some more beads and that into it. But it's the same basic technique. I'm going to show you how to do this on a different tutorial that's coming up. But today I'm going to show you this one, like I said, the more simple version. So if you want to learn how to make this, then keep watching. So it's then these materials here that we need to use. Now first of all we'll need a cord. This is a 0.4mm Eslon that I'm working with, and I just got a white colour here. I thought there'd be a nice contrast to my beads. And for the beads I'm working with some 6mm rounds, just plain 6mm rounds, and these are purple quartz gemstone beads. You can obviously use whatever you want to. And then I'll also be using these 12mm ribbon ends to finish off the bracelet at the end. And then finally we've got a clasp, an extended chain, and then some jump rings. That's obviously just what I'm going to be finishing off the bracelet with. You can choose whatever you want to. So let's get it all together and let's get started. Then the cord that we'll need is 10 lengths of our Eslon cord here, of about 2 meters each. And then what I've also done is I've put all the ends together just to get them even, and then gone about 10 centimeters in from the end and tied a regular overhand knot. So this is just to keep all the cords together, but also kind of gives us a starting point. These short ends we're going to leave till the end to work with, and then we're going to work with these long ends here to make the actual bracelet. So what I've then done is taken all my lengths of cord here with that knot that I tied, and I've attached it onto my macrame board. So I'm working on a project macrame board here. It's really handy to work with. And then I'm also using T-pins to help hold my work nice and taut on my board here. Makes it much easier to work with, like I said, because you can then use the pins throughout as well to help stabilize your piece. And then what I've done is I've just put my T-pins through the knot to fasten it onto the board. And then I have my long lengths pointing downwards here because that's the ones that we'll be working with. So the first thing I want to do is make a row of knots here just to get the whole thing started. So I'm just going to start from my left side. It doesn't really matter what side you start from because we'll be going back and forth anyway. This is just what's comfortable to me. So I just pick out one of my lengths of cord, just the one furthest towards the left there really. And then I'm going to take it over to the opposite side, so over in the direction to the right because it's coming from the left. So if you're working from the other side, just do it opposite. And then take it over all the others here. Now this is going to be the holding cord throughout the row that we're just going to do now. And then all you have to do is grab the other cords, but do one at a time. So just take kind of the first one you run into. So just keep working from that left side over towards the right. And then that's coming underneath, that's going to be the working cord. I want to make a double half hitch with that. So around and pull it through. So you get a 6 like that. And then I'm just going to tighten this, and as I tighten this I want to hold the holding cord kind of a little bit over towards the right, but downwards at an angle a little bit, like that. So around your finger, back around and through the loop. So you get your 6 here, and that's the other half of the double half hitch. And there we go, tighten that knot. So that's the first part of the row. And the reason that we want to come downwards a little bit at an angle, so the holding cord like this, is because that's how it's going to fit into the pattern on the bracelet. So just grab the next cord that you run into, take it around your finger, back around and through the loop. Again, so you get your 6. Tighten that while holding the holding cord taut in the opposite direction. Another one to make it a double half hitch. And tighten that, and that's your second cord that you've used. So basically you want to keep doing this, using up all the lengths of cord here. Like I said, it's just the beginning part to get the whole thing started out. So now I've reached this point where I've completed the row here. As you can see, have the holding cord going up towards the right side, coming downwards a little bit at an angle, and all the other cords, so all the other 9 here out of the 10 total ones, because that's the 10th one here, they're all coming down from the row that we just created. So this is what it looks like now, and they're separated out nicely because we have them in this row. So now what we need to do is start getting into the proper pattern here. So what I'm going to do first of all is take the holding cord. That needs to come back the other way around again. So we're just going to take it, put it over in the opposite direction, and again make sure it goes over all these cards here in the middle. And this is then again going to be the holding card, so hence why it goes over all the others. So what can help a little bit as well is just take another pin and then place this right at the end of the row where the holding card is coming out from, but right underneath the holding card. So just like that. That's really helpful, at least just to get the row started off. So basically what we're going to do now is make another row underneath the last one using the same holding card but going in the opposite direction. But there's also a bit of a difference to this row. So what we need to do is, like I said, have the holding card coming over towards left now if you're working with it in the same way that I'm doing. Then we need to start making our double half hitches in the same way. So I'm going to grab the very first card that's coming underneath, the first one that we run into there. And then I'm going to make a double half hitch with that. So it's the same, we're just swapping hands now as well. So that goes around the finger, back underneath and through the loop. And then on this side, we get an opposite 6 there. So you have your working card looping around the holding card. And then this is where the pin comes in handy, because then it helps being able to tighten this right underneath the end where the previous row ended there. So that's the first one. Once more for a double half hitch. Like that. And then this one we then put out to the side. So I'm just going to put it out to my right side so I don't get it mixed up with the others. Then I take the very next card that I run into, it's coming underneath. Always make sure you take the very next one so you don't mix them up. Make a double half hitch with that. Like that. And always make sure that when you're making these rows underneath each other that you get it as nice and tight underneath the previous one. So I like to kind of push the holding card upwards a little bit over the top of the previous row. That makes sure that they get really nice and tight. Now this working card, we don't want to just put it out to the side. I actually want to bring this over with me. So I'm just leaving out the first working card to the side, but then from now on I'm going to grab this working card that I just used and put it in with my holding card. So that basically means now we have 2 holding cards, but they're just going to be acting as one. And then I grab the very next working card that's coming underneath, do a double half hitch with that around both of these holding cards. Like I said, they're just acting as one. Again, tighten that so it goes all the way down. Your double half hitch here. Now this one we also want to bring in. So all you do when you use your working card, you just take it over with your holding cards, and then to kind of seal it in place, you use your next working card to fasten them down so they fully become all holding cards there. Grab the very next one, make a double half hitch with that. So you now have 3 holding cards technically, all acting as one though. Make a double half hitch with that one. Again, we're just still making a row underneath the last one though. This one we also bring in. So bring that over with the holding cards. Grab the very next working card. Make a double half hitch. So you can kind of almost say we're tidying up the cards here, bringing them with us over to the other side, rather than just leaving them hanging out below the row. Bring that with us as well. Grab the very next one, and make a double half hitch with that. Tighten that all the way up underneath the previous row. You can see the row is building here now, but we're not having any cards coming out underneath the row, except for the very first one. Bring that with us as well. Getting close to the end of the row. Make a double half hitch with the next one. The next working card here, like that. And again, this one goes with us as well, over to all the other holding cards. Now we grab the second last working card. We only have 2 left here. Make a double half hitch with that one and pull nice and tight. There we go. Now this one, this is the second last working card that we've got left. This one we also want to leave out. So just put this out towards the right side, out with the one that we already left there. So the second last one, remember, leave that out. Then we have the very last working cord left, comes underneath, and just make a double half hitch with that as well to kind of complete this row that we're just doing just now. And there we go. So you now have your second row there right underneath the first one that we did, and what you'll be able to see as well is because we brought in the working cord every time we used it, you can see the row itself gets a bit chunkier the further we get on, because obviously we have more holding cords inside of the row there, so inside the knots. But then this is what it looks like, and then we need to start making the little edge part where we're then going to incorporate the bead as well. So now, because obviously you can see here we don't have any more working cords to work with from that previous row, we just used that last one. So what we need to do is keep building on the row that we're already working on, but it's just going to come around in a curve and back in the opposite direction eventually. So the very last working cord that we used was that one, and it's coming straight down from the row. So what we need to do now is kind of change direction here, working on the same row. So I'm going to swap hands, and the working cord that we just used is going to go underneath all the bunch of holding cords here. They're still going to have the same jobs. So these ones are still going to be the holding cords, and that's still the working cord. I've just swapped hands now. So I'm then going to take the working cord underneath, around my finger and back through the loop. And then as I'm holding this, you just want to hold the holding cords kind of in the direction that the row is going, but starting to come downwards a little bit. Just tighten that once more for a double. Like that. So we're now continuing the row, and then what we need to do is come back again. So I take my working cord, back underneath all the holding cords to make my next knot, around my finger and through the loop. So we're constantly basically swapping hands or sides, you can say. Again, a double half hitch. Because what we're building now is this little edge that's going to go around the outside of the bead. Swap again, so my working cord always comes underneath the holding cords. Like that. You can see I'm starting to make a curve as well. That's what you do. The way you do that is how you hold your holding cords. When you tighten your knots, when you're then gradually moving your holding cords, it makes it so it gets this curve. And then again, swap direction. So obviously we need to build it long enough to be able to come all the way around the outside of the bead that we're then going to add in as well. Tighten that, swap again. So we're constantly just swapping hands here. Swap over. Always make sure you take the working cord underneath the holding cords and tighten your knots nicely. Like that. And again, working cord comes underneath, now towards the outside here. So just like that. And now what I want to do is then actually add in my bead, because obviously once you've done it, and also I'm going to tell you how many I've done, but then you just need to make enough of these so it's going to fit with how the bead is going to sit into it as well. And you judge that best by simply adding on your bead to this cord that's hanging out right here before we start that curve. So the working cord, that I left out previously, that's where the bead is going to sit onto that. And then you can see bringing the row around here, the one that we're building now, it's coming around the outside of the bead. And the best way to then judge how many knots you're going to need there is to see when that row ends, so your very last knot is coming down on the other side of the bead where the cord in the bead there is coming out from. So when you bring that underneath, it's going to fit, because then we need to make a knot with that as well. And you want to make sure that however many knots you make on the side here, that this working cord from that row points outwards or downwards here. You don't want it pointing in towards the bead, because we need to use this to go down to the next row and the next section as well. So always make sure however many knots that you use, if you want to say use some other materials, it always comes outwards from the bead, away from the bead, not in towards the bead there. So what I've ended up with here is actually a total of 8 knots going back and forth. So that's 1 on one side, one on the other, and that totals 8. So again, that's just what I'm using here for the materials that I'm using. If you're using some other materials, so the cord, the bead, maybe the size of the materials as well, then you might need to use a different amount of knots to reach around the outside of the bead, but you just have to measure that against it then, just like I just showed you here. So the end of the row fits to where the cord from the bead is coming out as well. So now that I know that I have enough knots here on the side to make this row reach, then I'm going to fasten the bead in place by the cord that the bead is sitting onto there. It's going to come underneath all the holding cords. Like I said, the one that we used to make the row, we just put that out to the side for now. Then I'm just going to make a double half hitch again, so the one coming underneath where the bead is on is the working cord. Then we take that around the finger and through the loop, around all these holding cords here. Tighten that nicely. Once more to make a double half hitch, and tighten that. So there we go. And then you can always just shape it a bit if it needs to, so it comes nicely curved around the bead there. So now the bead is fastened in place, then we're ready to make the other side of this little section. So we need to make a row down here, and then also be ready to start going into the next section as well. So then to build the row here, basically what we need to do is similar to the row that we made on the other side of the bead up here where we connected. We incorporated all the working cords into the holding cords. Now we need to do the opposite. So what we have is this whole bunch of holding cords here that we have because of that previous row. We now need to do the opposite by then taking one out every time we make a knot instead of bringing one in. So that means I've already used, this is the last working cord that I used, the one that I went through the bead. So put these out to the side so we don't get tangled up. Then what I'm going to do is take one cord from this whole bunch of holding cords, and I like to just kind of go towards the bottom of them, and then that is the first working cord for this row. So all I'm going to do is have that coming out underneath, take it around my finger and back through the loop like that, so you get your 6 here, and then all you do is tighten that all the way up after the previous knot, and we'll make a double half hitch again, just like that. And now that we've used that, we want to leave it out, so just put it out to the side with the other ones here. Then you want to grab another cord from the bunch of holding cords here, separate it out, and then make a double half hitch with that, and then tighten that right after the previous knot that we made. So just like this, and again just put this out to the side with the other working cords so we get them out of the way. And then as you'll be able to see, we're going to separate out another one here. We're going to get gradually less and less holding cords now until we're then back down to just one again. Separate one out, make a double half hitch with that around all the holding cords that you got left. Tighten that. And what we actually want to do now as well is when we're tightening our knots, the row that we're making here, we want it to come on the bottom side of the section that we're making, but up towards the very beginning of the first row up here. So when I'm tightening it, I want to start kind of bringing it upwards there, so we get the row going in the right direction. And like that, leave it out to the side. Just double check everything looks nice. Grab the next cord out of the bunch here. It's going to be the next working cord. Make your double half hitch. Tighten that. We're working our way with the row here back upwards a bit, and you can also help shape it after, but just work in that direction when you're tightening your knots. It does help a lot. Separate out the next one. You can see I don't have that many holding cords left out of the bunch now, so we're getting towards the end of the row here. Make a double half hitch with the next working cord. Tighten your knots nicely, like that. Now we only have 2 left, that means I can only separate out one more, so I grab the one furthest to the bottom, that's what I prefer. Make a double half hitch around the single holding cord now that we have left. Tighten that. And there we go. So we've now used all the holding cords, the whole bunch there, to build this row while separating them out along the way, and we're making this come gradually back up towards the kind of other point here. So we made a row going all the way, looping around the bead, and that's what it looks like. So now to connect these two sides together, this is still the holding cord. This is where I want to bring in the very first cord that we left out. So I'm going to take that from the very beginning of that row, bring it underneath the holding cord, and then make a double half hitch with that. So basically just continue this row, and then make sure I tighten this right after the last knot that I did, and that I pull the two cords. So pull the two rows, the end of this one and the beginning of that first one, I pull them nice and close together, because we don't want a big gap here. We want the points to be very nice and close together. So something like that. So it's now looped all the way back around. Then the holding cord is pointing out towards, straight out towards the right side here, and all the other cords are coming kind of downwards from that row where we separated them out from. Most of them there anyway. So that is the first section. So this is basically the first little section where we added a bead in. Now we need to go straight on to making the next section, where we're also then going to add a bead, and this is going to basically be exactly the same, but it's just on the other side. So we're going to keep swapping from side to side here. So that means I need to start out with all these cords that are coming straight downwards. I'm going to take the furthest one to the left. That's the one we want to start with. That's going to be the very first holding cord. So we need to bring that over all the others here, so it lies across them, because we need to start making a row underneath that previous one where all these ones are coming out from. So we need to start making a row here to be able to then work the other way to basically make the same thing, just mirrored on the other side. So I'm going to just grab hold of that holding cord here with my right hand in this case, because we're working over towards the right side, and then I'm going to grab the very first working cord that's coming underneath. Again, just look where they're coming out from. Make sure that you always grab the very next one and you don't mix them up, so you don't cross them over each other by accident. You want to make sure you grab the first one and then make a double half hitch with that. Tighten this right underneath the previous row, just like this. And then this one, if you remember from before, the first section, the very first one is the one we need to leave out. So I'm just going to leave that out to the side for now, just in the direction that's pointing. Move on to the next working cord. Make a double half hitch around the holding cord, just like this. Tightening nicely underneath the previous row, so nice and tight together there. And now this is where I want to start bringing in the working cords with the holding cord. So I just take the working cord that I just used over with my holding cord in the same direction, put them together so they're going to act as one. Grab the very next working cord, make a double half hitch around both of the holding cords here. And like that to continue the row. Again, bring in that working cord with the holding cords. So this is the point where we're gradually getting more and more holding cords, just like in the beginning on that previous section up here, to bring them in so we have this section where we don't just have the cords hanging down. Grab the very next one, make a double half hitch around this bunch of holding cords. That's now gradually increasing. Make your knots nice and tight. Bring in the working cord with the holding cords. Work your way all the way across here. Again, double half hitch, nice and tight. Just make sure your rows get nice and tight underneath each other. Like that. Bring in the working cord. So put it all the way around here. Make your knot. The double half hitch just like all the other ones. Again, bring this in because we're not quite at the end yet. Grab the next working cord. It's coming underneath. And like that. And now we're almost at the end. So this is where we just need to be aware of the cords that we have left. There we go. So again, this is the working cord that I just used. You can see here we have one left out of the ones that are coming down, but we also have the holding cord from the previous row pointing straight out to the side. So that's the last two cords. That means the one that I just used we also need to bring in, because if you remember from before, it's the second last one that we need to leave out. So that's actually the one that we're using now. That's the one we're going to add the bead onto. So make a double half hitch all around all these holding cords now. There we go. Now, like I said, we're adding the bead onto that one when we get to that point. So I'm leaving that out. Then what we have left is that holding cord from the previous row. All you do with that is you bring that down underneath all the holding cords. So this whole bunch. So just bring it all the way underneath, and then you just make a double half hitch with that. So basically just incorporating it in as if it was another working cord. Like that. And then that is the first knot here out of the row that we're then going to continue, but that we're going to make that kind of curve come around the outside of the bead. So this is the one we need to use now, going back and forth, swapping from side to side. So that was the first one. I now need to bring the same working cord that I just used back underneath the holding cords towards the other side, and then do the same thing but just swap hands. So make a double half hitch with opposite hands, round the finger and through the loop, and tighten this. This is where you just need to hold the holding cords in the direction where we can start making this curve around. Once more for a double here. Tighten it nicely. Now that's one double half hitch, so we need to bring the working cord back underneath again to the other side. Always make sure you bring it underneath. Make a double half hitch on the opposite side here. And then this is my third one. Back to the other side again. So just keep swapping hands. Tighten them nicely right underneath each other, so you get a nice and tight row of knots. So that's my fourth one. Back to the other side. And this is where, remember, if you're using different materials than me, so you have to use a different amount of knots to reach this outside of the bead, then you only need to figure out from the first one how many knots, and then you can just remember and make sure you do count them every time you do a row then. So you know how many you need for the other ones. But just do the same ones that you did around the first one, and you can keep doing that throughout. So all you have to do is kind of figure it out the very first bead if you're using different materials than me. And then you'll know for the rest of them how many knots you need to do. So there we go, tighten it, come back around again. See, we're almost getting there. We're getting that nice curve all the way around, where we can see that the bead is going to fit just nicely inside. Another double half hitch. And this is also where, regardless what materials you use, make sure that this working cord, the last knot that you do, is going to be pointing outwards, away from your piece and away from the bead, and not in towards the bead. So there we go. So this cord here that we have left, it's just hanging down from the previous row, that's kind of going across the middle there, that little curve that we made. That's the one, like I said, we need to add the bead onto. So add your bead onto that, so it's going to sit right there in that curve again, fits perfectly. And then what I'm going to do, just the same as we did up here, that needs to come underneath. So this cord that the bead is sitting on needs to come underneath this whole bunch of holding cords. And then this is the next working cord, that one just here with the bead on. The other one that I just used to make this row, now just leave it out to the side, we're done with that for now. Then I need to finish and kind of secure the bead in place by using this cord to make a double half hitch around this whole bunch of holding cords. Tighten that nicely. And there we go, just after the previous knot just there, and then it's sit nice and securely in place. And then you can see this is a big chunk of the next section that we've done then. So the same as up here, it's just mirrored on the other side of it. So basically what you want to do now is keep repeating. So this is the point where on the first one we then need to start graduating the holding cords down again. So we need to separate one out every time we make a knot rather than bringing one in. So that's what I'm just going to do again. So take your first holding cord, separate that out. Now use that one as a working cord around all the other holding cords to keep building this row. Make your double half hitch with it. And then every time you've made a double half hitch, just leave it out to the side with the other ones here. Separate out your next one. And make a double half hitch. And then you'll be able to see the principle of it. This is then going to be coming in the other direction, getting up towards the point where we left the very first cord out and then connect to that. So you can see the effect that it's going to have. Same as the other side, but then because we have them on both sides alternating from each other, it's going to give that really nice effect. So just separating out one cord at a time here out of that whole bunch of holding cords, building up your row. Till we reach all the way and we only have one cord left here. So I'm getting to the point where I don't have that many left to use. Make a double half hitch. Tighten that. Now I only have two cords left out of the holding cords here. So I just take the one I choose to use as the working cord, make a double half hitch with that. And that's the last one out of this bunch. So there we go. You can see now also the thickness of the row has become gradually smaller again. And then this is going to come back around. So now this is where we need to use the very first cord that we left out. Bring that underneath the holding cord. And then just make a double half hitch with that as well. To secure the two sides and the two ends of the rows basically. The two ends of this one row you could kind of say is that curves around. Secure them together as well. With a double half hitch. So I just like to pull the first one tight and then I can go in and pull the second one to make sure they get as tight as possible close together there so we don't have a big gap, just like up in the first one. And then that's basically that next section. So you have the holding cord coming out to the opposite side now that it did from the first section. Then all these cords coming straight downwards from that bottom row that we just made. And we're now ready to keep going on with the next section, and that's now this one, the first one up here, so where the bead is going to sit on the other side. So all you want to do is repeat this now, alternating from side to side until you have the length that you want. So now that I kept going here and I've reached the length roughly that I want my bracelet to be, minus the clasp obviously, then what we need to do is finish off the ends, because obviously we have all these cords that we need to get rid of, and finish off the end nicely. Now I'm going to do both ends in the same way, so I'm just going to show you on here. So what we need to do is I'm going to start from the side that's the furthest up, so from the side here without the bead on the first section. I'm just going to take that, so the furthest left one, in my case, bring it all the way over to the right, over all the others, and then we need to start making some rows of knots here to build up a little section that we can use for our ribbon ends. And then the first one that's coming underneath, I'm going to grab that, that's the first working cord, then I'm just going to do double half hitches around that holding cord. And then we want to make some rows underneath this kind of angled line there. So the very last one that's in that section. So always double half hitches to build up your row. Take the very next working cord that's coming underneath. Again, double half hitch. And just every time you tighten your knot, make sure that your knot gets tight right underneath the row up here. That's part of that section. Grab the next one, like that, make your double half hitch, And basically you'll just be working you all the way to the other end, using up all these cords one at a time until you made it all the way over to the other side. So then when you completed the row here, the very first one, you can see it lies nice and straight going from that side over to the opposite side at an angle there. I've got my holding cord just coming out to the side. So we need to make the next row. So what I'm going to do is go back to the same side that we started from. So in my case back to the left side here. I'm going to take the very furthest left one over all the others over towards the right. And then we're going to be doing the exact same thing now. So grab the very first cord that's coming underneath, that's going to be the first working cord, and just start a new row, making your double half hitches, always grabbing the very next cord, and then building up this row right underneath the previous one, and again working your way all the way out to the end, using up every single cord along the way. Now that I'm done at the end of that row, I'm just going to also incorporate the previous holding cord from the very first row that we did up there, so the one just before it, and I'm just going to take that holding cord, the top one, bring it underneath the current holding cord, and then you just want to do the exact same thing, use that as your next working cord by making a double half hitch and tightening that all the way up. And then that one, this knot here, completes this next row that we've just done. So then what I'm going to do is repeat another row the exact same way. Start from the very furthest left towards the right here in my case. So just go back to the beginning, make another row here, and then once you've done that, then I'm going to start kind of graduating the rows to get smaller and smaller, because I want to end up with kind of a straight line, straight end up here. As you can see now, the rows are going at an angle. I want it to end up kind of straight so it'll fit inside the ribbon end. So now that I also completed these rows here, I've got 3 in total now. It's going to be a pretty good amount to fit inside the ribbon end. I want to start graduating my rows to be smaller, so we're going to get more of that straight edge. So again, I'm just going to go back to the beginning, bring the first cord over all the others, then start making my row in the exact same way with my double half hitches here. Now the difference with this row, as opposed to the others that we've just done, it's not going to be as long as them, so we're actually going to stop before we reach right to the end, and that's what's going to do it, so it's going to end up being more of a straight edge. And don't really worry about it being not looking 100% straight, because obviously it will be hidden inside the ribbon end. This is just to make it fit nicely. So I'm taking one at a time, working my way towards the end here with my double half hitches. And then what I'm going to do is, right now I'm using the third last cord, and I'm going to have 2 left after that. So I'm going to use this one to make my double half hitch, and then I'm going to leave the last 2 out. So I'm just going to stop this row here, and I've got these 2 working cords left. You just put them out to the side, and then you go back to the beginning again, start your next row the exact same way. So all the rows are the same, we're just making them shorter to make them fit. Making your double half hitches here. Working your way all the way across using every single cord. And also now the rows are getting much shorter, so they're much quicker to do. Now you just want to have a look here. Those 2 are from the previous row that I left out. So on this one, I want to leave out just my last cord and not use that. It's really a matter of just having a look at it as you go. And then I'm going to leave that one out as well. The last one from this row that I'm currently doing. So not use that. Back to the beginning again. Start your new row. Make your double half hitch. And then your next one. And here we don't have many cords at all. So that's actually it for this row, because I have 1 cord left that I haven't used, but I'm going to leave that out just to make sure that the row doesn't stick out too much from the other ones. I'm just going to do a very last knot, so I'm taking my very furthest one to the left, and then just making my last knot here with the 1 working cord that I've got left. So a double half hitch, just to kind of fill in this little corner as well. And there we go. So now you can see the edge is much straighter. Obviously it's not perfectly straight, but it doesn't matter, like I said, because it's going to be hidden inside the ribbon end. But it's good enough now to use to be able to finish it off. So then what we can do is take it off the board now, because we're done with all the macrame work. And then all that's left to do is finish off the ends here that we got ready. Both ends are the same. I'm going to be doing the exact same thing, obviously. So because here I'm using synthetic cord, what I'm going to do is just cut these down and then singe the ends with a lighter. But if you're using a natural cord, what you're going to have to do is put a bit of glue here to make sure the last few knots don't unravel. But I'm just going to finish it off like I said. So I'm just going to cut down the ends. Something like that. I'm leaving just a couple of millimeters here on all the ends. Then I'm going to grab my lighter, and obviously be careful using this because it's naked flame and it gets hot as well. I'm just going to go over the ends that I just cut down, but where I have a couple of millimeters left, and just singe them down as well. And that basically seals them in place, but also finishes them off nicely. So we're not going to have a load of little ends sticking out somewhere. So there we go. That's one end, and then I want to use my ribbon end here to get on top of here and finish it off really nicely. So we get the actual end of the bracelet. As you can see, we get a much straighter edge here because of how we did the rows by graduating them downwards. It's going to fit nicely just inside the ribbon end. So what I'm also going to do to add security to the ribbon end here is I'm going to add a little bit of glue on the inside of it, and I'm just going to be using the E6000. So I just take a toothpick and then get a bit of glue on there. Just a bit, it doesn't have to be too much. And then I put this inside the ribbon end. As you can see here, it's kind of like a crocodile mouth. I'm going to put this just inside, just up and down the sides of it, and a bit down to the bottom as well. So like I said, it doesn't have to be too much because it'll just come spilling out anyway. I just like to give it that extra security. And also this glue dries clear, so if something does come spilling out, it's not too big of a deal. Just like that. And I also just like to put whatever I have left right on the ends here. A bit on the back and the front. Just makes it bond nicely when I then put it in and clamp down the ribbon end. So something like that. And then I want to place the ribbon end on top of the end there, get it in there nicely, and make sure the end of your bracelet is kind of centered in the ribbon end, because you don't want any sticking out on one or the other side. Then I'm going to grab some flat nose or chain nose pliers here. I'm going to grab hold of it, and while I'm squeezing this down, just make sure that the ribbon end doesn't move from one side or another, but it stays exactly where you want it to. That's why I prefer to just go in somewhere and start pressing it down gently. So I don't go in on one end and make a big squeeze, because then you got higher risk that it's going to move. And then get it pressed down, and once you feel like you're almost there, just make sure it's still centered and sitting correctly just how you want it to. Then can go in and do one last squeeze all over. Make it tighter, because that's obviously how it works. You kind of clamp this down on the end. I also just like to go in on the ends of the ribbon, the sides there. Just make sure they're not too open. There we go. And that's now finished off, and then obviously you just want to let the glue dry a bit as well. And then you have the little loop here where you can attach your jump rings and then your findings as well. And you obviously want to do that to the other end. So both ends are the same, and then let the glue dry, attach your findings, and then once you've done that, you'll have your finished bracelet. So here's then the finished bracelet. And I finished off both ends there using an extender chain and a lobster claw clasp. And then you can easily wear it. And it's nice and comfortable to wear as well because it's nice and flat. And it kind of has this natural curve as well because of the technique that we've done. It gets this nice natural curve. So there we go. That's the finished bracelet. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this beaded diamonds macrame bracelet, and this is what mine looks like. So you can see you have multiple rows there of your diamonds with your beads in between. And then this is one version of the bracelet that I've already done that looks like this. So this is more simple in a way. You got one row of diamonds here with beads on, but here we got the multiple rows. So the link for this one, for the tutorial for this bracelet, will already be in the description box below the video.